They fired the kind janitor, but his goodbye letter made everyone cry. "Sir, I cleaned your coffee spill last night. You don't have to shout." The old janitor's voice was quiet but steady. Everyone in the office froze. Mr. Reed, the operations manager, slammed his cup on the table. "You cleaned my spill? Then maybe clean this too," he barked, tipping what was left of his coffee across the floor. Gasps. Laughter from the younger employees. The old man didn't move. He just stared at the dark puddle spreading on the white tiles. Then he said softly, "I'll clean it, sir." Like I always do. The room went silent. Something in his tone, calm, sad, yet full of dignity, made even the loudest ones look away. His name was Thomas Gray, 62 years old, janitor for 22 years. He knew every broken light, every squeaky door, every name. But in that office, nobody really saw him. He bent down, wiped the floor gently, then smiled faintly. "Coffee stains come off easy," he murmured. "But words, they stay longer." Lily, the receptionist, rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, don't act so deep, old man." "It's just coffee." Thomas said nothing. He just wrung his mop, the smell of cleaner filling the room. At 10 a.m., while he was wiping the glass doors, Mr. Reed's voice echoed again. "Thomas, in my office." Thomas straightened his back slowly and walked in. Reed didn't even look up from his computer. "Thomas, the company's making cuts. HR says your position's being removed. Today's your last day." Thomas nodded once. "I understand," Reed frowned. "You're taking this, well? I've been through worse, sir. May I finish cleaning before I go?" "Why would you want to?" He smiled gently. "Because this floor still has footprints." For a second, Reed's face softened. Then he hid it behind his tie and said, "Do what you want." By noon, the rumor spread. "Did you hear? They fired the janitor. Finally. He was ancient. Yeah, but he was always kind to me." Thomas kept working quietly, humming under his breath, the same tune he used when life got too loud. At 3 p.m., he folded his uniform, placed his work ID on the desk, and sat with a small notebook. His pen scratched slowly across the page. Each word came from 22 years of silence. When he finished, he sealed the envelope and wrote one line on top. "To everyone I cleaned after. Thank you." An hour later, he was gone. But when Lily found that envelope on his desk and opened it, the whole office would stop breathing. "What's this?" Lily asked, frowning at the brown envelope lying on Thomas's empty desk. His name tag sat beside it, the plastic cracked from years of wear. She held it up. "It says, 'To everyone I cleaned after, thank you.'" Weird. "Maybe it's his resignation note," joked one of the interns. But when she opened the envelope, her smile faded. Inside was a folded piece of paper. Old, slightly stained from his hands, written in neat, careful pen strokes. She started reading out loud. "To everyone who ever walked these halls, I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't always see me, but I saw you. Every day." The office went quiet. Phones stopped ringing. Even the sound of keyboards died away. Lily swallowed hard and kept reading. "To the young man who spilled coffee on his report last year. You never knew, but I reprinted it from the trash before your boss found out. You got that promotion next week. You deserved it." Everyone looked at Aaron, the quiet intern who had just turned pale. He remembered that night, the panic, the ruined papers, the miracle reprint left on his desk the next morning. Lily continued, her voice trembling. "To the lady who cried in the restroom every Friday, I'm sorry I knocked once and didn't say a word. I wanted to tell you it would be okay, but I thought my silence would be kinder." It was Maya from accounting. She covered her mouth, tears welling up. She remembered those nights, crying over her divorce, thinking no one heard. Someone had. To the manager who forgot his lunch every day, "Those sandwiches in the fridge weren't from the catering team. They were from me. You always looked too busy to eat." Mr. Reed froze. The room turned toward him. He blinked hard, remembering how, for months, there had always been an extra sandwich waiting, the same kind he liked. Lily's voice cracked on the last lines, and to the young receptionist who used to shout at me, I forgive you. I know stress makes kind people sound unkind. I hope one day someone forgives you the same way." Lily couldn't finish. Her lips trembled. The letter slipped from her hands, fluttering to the floor. No one moved. No one spoke. The office that once laughed at him now sat in stunned silence, faces wet with guilt and tears. Outside the window, the sun dipped low. Golden light spilling across the empty hallway Thomas once cleaned. For the first time, everyone saw what he had truly done. He hadn't just cleaned floors. He had cleaned their messes, quietly, kindly, completely. The office was silent for a long time after Lily finished reading. No one made eye contact. The same people who once ignored Thomas couldn't even look at each other now. Mr. Reed was the first to speak. Where does he live?" he asked quietly. No one knew. Not a single person. 22 years he had worked beside them, and not one of them even knew where he went home to. "I think he takes the 5 o'clock bus," said Aaron, the intern. "I've seen him waiting by the stop near the park." Reed grabbed his coat. "Let's go." By the time they reached the bus stop, the sky was fading orange, clouds heavy with rain. But Thomas wasn't there. Just the sound of passing cars and the cold wind blowing through the empty benches. "Maybe he already left," Lily murmured, hugging her arms. Guilt sat heavy on her chest. The words she'd thrown at him earlier replayed in her head like a cruel echo. They decided to check his address through HR. An hour later, 3 employees, Reed, Lily, and Aaron, stood in front of a small, run-down apartment building on the edge of town. The stairs creaked. The walls smelled like dust and old paint. A woman from the second floor pointed them to his door. "Room 2B, but you just missed him," she said. "Missed him?" Lily asked quickly. The woman nodded sadly. "He moved out this morning. Said he was going to stay with his daughter for a while. Left in a hurry. Sweet old man. Always fixed the lights for us when the landlord didn't." Lily's throat tightened. Even here, Thomas had been helping others. They looked around his small room. It was almost empty. Just a single chair, a worn Bible on the table, and one framed picture on the wall. It showed Thomas and a little girl, smiling, her arms around his neck. Aaron picked up a small note from the table. It read, "If anyone comes looking, tell them I'm okay. Don't worry, I finally have time to rest." Reed exhaled, his voice cracking. "We never even said thank you," Lily whispered. "We never even asked how he was." They stood there in silence. 3 people who had once looked down on him, now standing in the middle of his tiny apartment, realizing how small they were compared to the heart that had lived there. Outside, it started to rain. Not hard, just enough to sound like tears on the window. Reed turned away and said quietly, "Tomorrow, we're calling everyone in. We're going to fix this." The next morning, the office felt like a different world. No one laughed in the hallways. No one argued over coffee. The usual noise had been replaced by quiet guilt. Mr. Reed stood in front of the conference room window, looking out at the city below. He'd been in management for 10 years, but he'd never felt smaller than he did now. "All right," he said finally, clearing his throat. "Everyone, gather around. We need to talk about Thomas." Chairs creaked as the employees slowly took their seats. Even Lily sat quietly in the corner, her eyes red from crying. Reed looked down at the piece of paper in his hand, a copy of Thomas's letter. "I read this again last night," he began, voice trembling slightly, "and I realized something. We didn't just fire an employee. We lost the heart of this place." No one spoke. A few people nodded, wiping away tears. Zia, from accounting, whispered, "He saw us when we didn't even see ourselves." Aaron added softly, "He cared about us more than we ever cared about him." Lily finally stood, voice shaky but honest. "Yesterday I yelled at him, treated him like dirt, and he still forgave me in that letter. Who does that?" Her words hung heavy in the air. Then the door opened slowly. Everyone turned. A young woman stepped inside, maybe in her 20s, holding a small box and a folded umbrella. Her eyes looked tired but kind. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I'm Thomas Gray's daughter." Gasps filled the room. Reed quickly stood. Please come in. We were just talking about your father." She smiled sadly. "He told me he'd left something for the people at work. I didn't expect it would mean so much." Reed shook his head. "Your father changed us." She placed the small box on the table. "He asked me to bring this today. Said you'd understand once you opened it." Inside the box were a few of Thomas's old things: his work gloves, his name tag, and a small folded note. Reed opened the note carefully and read aloud. "Don't feel sorry for me. I didn't lose my job. I finished my work. Keep this place clean, not just the floors, but your hearts." The room went silent again. Lily covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now. Even the toughest ones in the back quietly wiped their eyes. Thomas's daughter smiled faintly through her tears. He used to say, "A clean floor shines for a day, but a kind act shines forever." Reed looked around the room and whispered, "Then from today, we start shining." For the first time in years, the office didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a church of silence, heavy, sacred, filled with regret and quiet reflection. Thomas's gloves now sat inside a glass box in the main lobby, beside a sign that read, "In memory of the man who cleaned more than floors." People stopped every morning to look at it. Some prayed, some smiled, some cried. Lily came in early that Monday, earlier than anyone expected. She walked straight to the lobby, placed a cup of hot coffee beside Thomas's box, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. I brought you your coffee today." Then she went upstairs and started doing something no one had ever seen her do: helping others. When the intern spilled papers, she bent down to pick them up. When the cleaner came in, she greeted her by name. The change was small, but it spread like light through glass. By lunch, people were talking differently. "Hey, do you need help with that?" "Take a break, I'll cover you." Simple words, but they hadn't been spoken here in years. Mr. Reed noticed it too. He found himself holding doors open, saying thank you to the maintenance staff, and even walking through the building to talk to employees, not about reports or deadlines, but about how they were doing. Everywhere he looked, there was a quiet echo of Thomas's voice. That old janitor's spirit had somehow stayed behind, not in the mop, not in the gloves, but in the way people started treating each other. One afternoon, Reed found Maya crying at her desk. He asked gently, "Are you okay?" She smiled through tears. "I'm just thinking. Thomas used to ask me that every Friday. No one else ever did." Reed sat down beside her. "Then maybe we start asking more." Later that day, the team gathered around the break room table. No one brought phones. No one complained. Instead, they shared stories about the day Thomas fixed the vending machine for free, how he stayed late to help the security guard with his car, how he always remembered birthdays even when no one remembered his. "Aaron," the intern said quietly, "he never wanted recognition. He just wanted us to be good people." Lily nodded. "Then let's be the people he believed we could be." The office fell silent again, but it wasn't guilt this time. It was peace. Outside, the janitor's closet light was still on. Inside, the broom leaned neatly in the corner, as if waiting for him to come back, and somehow, it felt like he never really left. A week after Thomas's farewell letter changed everything. The office looked different, not because of new paint or furniture, but because people had changed. Smiles were warmer, voices were softer, even the air felt lighter, like the walls had finally exhaled years of pride. But one morning, when the elevator doors opened, the room went silent again. Thomas's daughter walked in, holding a small brown envelope close to her chest. Her eyes were swollen, not from fresh tears but from old ones that never stopped. "Hi," she said softly. "Mr. Reed. Can we talk?" Reed stood. "Of course. Come in." Everyone watched as she sat down in his office, placing the envelope on the table. "I found this yesterday while unpacking my dad's things," she said. "He wrote it the night before he left the company." Reed frowned gently. "Another letter?" She nodded. He wanted it delivered a week later. He said, "They'll understand more when their hearts are ready." Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope and unfolded the paper. It was short, Just a few lines, but it felt heavier than 100 pages. To my work family, I know you might feel guilty, but please don't. Every floor I cleaned gave me peace. Every kind word, even if rare, gave me strength. What you never knew is that I wasn't just cleaning for a paycheck. I was cleaning this building for my wife. She passed away here 15 years ago. She worked in this office before any of you. This place was the last thing she loved, so I stayed. Every corner I polished was her memory. Every day I stayed was for her. Don't cry for me. Love what you have and before it's gone. Thomas, the room went still. Reed's eyes widened. His wife worked here? Thomas's daughter nodded, tears falling freely. Mom was a secretary here. She had a heart attack one morning before help came. Dad couldn't let go. He said cleaning her office made him feel close to her. Lily covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. Aaron stared at the floor, his eyes wet. Reed whispered, "He didn't just work here. He loved here." Thomas's daughter smiled faintly. "He did, and he forgave you all long before you ever realized you'd hurt him." Reed took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "We thought we were teaching him how to serve, but he was the one teaching us how to live." The daughter placed the letter on his desk and said softly, "Dad wanted you to know. He never held grudges. He just wanted people to be better than yesterday." Reed nodded, tears rolling down his face. "We will be," he said. "I promise." A week later, the building that once felt cold and rushed was filled with something new. Warmth. Banners hung in the lobby. Flowers lined the hallway. And right in the center stood a polished marble plaque that read, "In loving memory of Thomas and Grace Gray, two souls who taught us what humanity means." Everyone from the company gathered. Even people who had resigned years ago returned when they heard about the event. There were no fancy speeches, no business suits pretending to care, just faces full of truth. Mr. Reed stood at the podium, his voice softer than anyone had ever heard it. "When we lost Thomas," he began, "we thought we were losing an employee. But what we really lost was our conscience, the quiet man who reminded us what kindness looks like." He paused, his throat tight. "We measured his worth in hours and paychecks, but he measured his in people. He made this company clean long before we noticed the dirt." The crowd stayed silent, listening, not out of politeness but respect. Lily stood beside him, holding a framed picture of Thomas smiling beside his mop bucket. When Reed nodded, she stepped forward. "Last month," she said softly, "I shouted at him, told him he was in my way, and the next morning he forgave me without a single word. Just a smile. That smile has haunted me since. I used to think kindness was weakness, but now I know it's the strongest thing a person can be." Her voice broke. The audience wiped tears. Then, from the back, Thomas's daughter stepped up. She wore a small silver pin on her dress, her father's old name tag, polished and shining. "My father loved this place," she said. "Not for what it paid him, but for what it reminded him of. My mother's laughter used to echo in these halls. He stayed so her memory could stay too." The audience bowed their heads. Some cried openly. "And he asked for only one thing," she continued, her eyes wet but proud, "that you never forget the value of the quiet people, the ones who hold this world together without being seen." Reed placed a hand over his heart. "I think it's time we renamed this building," he said quietly. The employees gasped. Reed looked up. "From today, this is the Gray Center." Applause broke out, not loud but heavy, emotional, full of gratitude. People hugged, tears flowed, and for the first time in years the building didn't just stand tall, it felt alive. Months passed, but the memory of Thomas Gray never left the building. Every wall still whispered his kindness. Every floor he once cleaned seemed to shine a little longer, as if refusing to forget the hands that cared for it. At the entrance of the Gray Center, the plaque caught the morning light. Underneath it, people often left flowers, coffee cups, even small thank you notes. Not because anyone asked them to, but because they felt it. Lily walked through the lobby one morning with a gentle smile. She now headed the company's community care program, a new department Mr. Reed had started in Thomas's honor. They donated supplies to local schools, helped elderly workers find jobs, and trained interns to lead with empathy before authority. Every meeting began the same way now, not with numbers or reports, but with a moment of silence, a reminder that business could be human too. That day, Lily stood beside the plaque, reading a new message engraved below Thomas's name. Kindness is not a small act. It's the foundation everything stands on. She smiled softly and whispered, "You finally changed us, Mr. Thomas." Aaron, now promoted, joined her with a file in hand. "Guess what?" he said, smiling. "The janitor we hired last month, his first request was that we install a resting bench in every hallway. He said, 'Even people who clean need a place to sit sometimes.'" Lily laughed through a tear. "He sounds just like Thomas," Aaron nodded. "Maybe that's the point. We're all supposed to sound like him now." Across the lobby, Mr. Reed walked out of his office carrying a cup of black coffee. He placed it beside Thomas's plaque, just as Lily used to, and stood quietly for a moment. Then he said under his breath, "You didn't work for me, Thomas. You worked on me." Outside, the city moved fast as ever, but inside that building time felt slower, softer. People greeted the cleaning staff by name. Managers carried their own trash to bins. No one left without holding the elevator for the next person. Thomas's daughter visited sometimes, smiling as she watched strangers treat each other like family. She often said, "Dad always wanted to leave the world cleaner than he found it. I think he did." And as evening sunlight poured through the glass walls, the reflection of the plaque shimmered across the floor like a golden ripple, the quiet proof that one humble man, armed with nothing but a mop and a kind heart, had managed to wash the dust off more than just the floors. He had cleaned their souls. The end.